All right. So let's go. I'm going to go ahead and hit record. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and do your thing.
Hi, this is Dr. Alan Leica, and I'm with Jeff Smith on Vroom, Veer. Uh, Please check me out on my website, dralanleica.com. That's Lycka.
Perfect. Well done. And on the first take.
Always good when you get it on the first take.
Good job. Thank you, sir. All right.
It must be Friday.
It must be Friday, right? You're relaxed. There's no pressure on Friday. Okay. I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Ken Greene, thank you so much for being on Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Great. Yeah, great. And thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
This is going to be fun. I already know we started making ourselves laugh before the show started, so it's always a good sign. I think
Yeah, I was going to say that's always a good sign. I agree.
Right. Because sometimes it doesn't work out.
You know, if someone's not laughing at your jokes within a few seconds, like, boy, this is going to be a long hour.
This is going to be a lot of pull. There's going to be a lot of pull going on. Yes. So you are the engineer of finance. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Oh, in this industry, what I'm excited about with this business, just I enjoyed my podcast, hosting that, and then also just absolutely love helping my clients. I love the one-on-one relationships I have with the families I represent, and so and I'm not saying this in an arrogant way. I'm just really good at what I do, and I love analytical thinker. Me being just the engineering background, I attract a lot of engineers, a lot of analytical thinkers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And most of the industry hates engineers and analytical thinkers. They hate dealing with us, and so it's like, fine, send them my way, because I enjoy having my feet held to the fire. I enjoy the 60, 70 questions. It doesn't start that way. It starts with a few, then it builds on to 10 more, then 10 more. But that's what's doing so well. Is I absolutely enjoy having the fun title, the engineer of finance. I enjoy helping families East Coast to West Coast that love diving deep into the weeds. I love the education piece. I love learning and I love educating. And so I embrace those type of relationships and love having my clients become just absolutely empowered, so that although I'm into lifelong relationships, heaven forbid something happens to me, they're empowered, they have the foundation, they have the structure to ask the right questions and know how to take the next step and move forward. And great. That's what I'm excited about. It's a blessing.
And people need this help for sure. So yeah, definitely. Great job. And I love the fact that you're bringing the mindset of engineering and being an engineer to the idea of engineering your financial success. That's a good idea. It's really a good idea because most of it's math, you know?
Yeah, a lot of it. And then you see how the industry promotes things. Boy, they found clever ways to use terms in math to lie and manipulate. And it's interesting. And so
we can talk about that. Great. So what I want to talk about in the future in this show, so down the road, what we're going to talk about, how you made that pivot from being an engineer and then finding yourself in finance, and sort of like what you smelled when you made that turn. You were like, oh, okay, what's going on?
I have some fun stories on that one.
Right. So that's coming. We're going to talk a little bit about you growing up, just because that's fun. Maybe a little bit of you in college, and then maybe some pros and cons of engineer think. Because
sounds great.
Yeah. So here we go. So talk a little bit about you growing up. Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Morristown, New Jersey.
Very nice.
I grew up in Morristown. I mean, technically lived in Randolph, but I was born in Morristown Memorial Hospital. During the school years, that's where I was raised, and then in the summers, raised in Annapolis, Maryland. And so it was really a great experience. And
Whole East Coast kind of vibe.
yes, and it's you know, a lot of people out here in the Reno Tahoe area. So what do you miss the most about back east? And there's a lot of things I miss, but I would say number one, the food.
Really?
Oh gosh, yeah, some of the best.
Wow.
Oh yeah, Taylor ham sandwiches, the thin crust pizza, all the food that I experienced. Although I never really remember going to any Mexican style restaurants. I didn't experience Mexican food till I moved out to Nevada.
Right.
And so that was new to me. But yeah, that's where I grew up, was Morristown, New Jersey during the school years, and Annapolis, Maryland in the summers. And it's one of those things that you didn't realize what I had I still have great parents. It was such a great everything, upbringing, education, friends, experiences. And so that's
So what kind of, if you remember the TV show, the movie Breakfast Club?
yes.
So did you fit into a stereotype when you were in high school?
I don't think so. I think that's a funny show or
yeah,
movie. I
right.
enjoyed the movie. It's hilarious.
right.
But no, I don't think so. I always feel like school, especially middle school and high school, and college, was a little awkward for me. I'm naturally kind of to myself and kind of shy.
Okay. Right.
I shouldn't say shy, but just I always thrive being, I guess, in the corner for the most part in a classroom type environment. And no, it was a great upbringing growing up in Morristown, and also it was a great experience with my parents, just because my dad, he's an engineer as well. He was electrical, Bachelor of Science in electrical engineering, and was a nuclear engineer. Worked in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Worked at 3 Mile Island.
Yikes!
And yeah, well, he wasn't there. That wasn't his fault, right? So he'll be the first to tell you that was not his fault.
I didn't do it.
3 Mile Island. He wasn't a part of that.
Right.
But he was very driven growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, and got a phenomenal education. Went to Virginia Tech. And so when I was a little guy, I was also surrounded by a very strong entrepreneur. And so it was a great upbringing, because not only I would argue my parents are very smart, good education, very intelligent.
Right.
My mom, an accountant, that type of background.
Right.
Combined with an engineer, and then he wanted to get into the computer world.
Okay.
And was fascinated in the late 70s with computers, and opened up the first Computerland franchise in Morristown, New Jersey.
Wow.
So I got to grow up. I was literally soldering on my dad's lap, Apple IIe's when I was a kid.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
so
great.
I was surrounded by
Now we can talk nerd stuff.
Yeah, it was fun. And so it was a great experience for me, because as a kid, you just don't understand. It's a lot to open up a company. It's a lot to walk away, especially in general public utility. I think it's company or corporation, essentially a guaranteed income stream for the rest of your life, and just go out. My granddad thought my granddad, he thought my dad was crazy. My dad's friends, neighbors, like, oh my gosh, you're going to open up a computer store?
You're going to go broke.
Yeah, you think businesses are going to buy computers?
Right.
And I have one of the articles. He's like, I think every human being is going to have a computer down the road. And so he took a big risk and believed in it. And my mom, with the business / accounting type background, your ultimate business partner is your spouse. She backed them up, and they did it. And so I remember a lot of weekends being at the store helping sheetrock and clean things, or who knows how.
Now, did you play with computers too?
Oh yeah, I was.
So now it sounds like you were soldering motherboards and circuit cards and stuff. That's crazy. I've never done that. The most I've ever done is I've never done any sort of circuit card repair, as they say, or make. I know there's people out there that nerd up and solder their own circuit boards. That to me is a step beyond. I can't.
It was. I loved it. Something on the hardware side. Something I always have enjoyed.
Really
interesting enough. Around middle school, I just got so sick of programming.
Okay.
And so I naturally excelled at, because I was surrounded by it. I mean, my gosh, when we were kids, I remember me and my brothers were playing with all these cards. They weren't even keyboards, right? There's all Fortran punch cards, and so we thought that was fun paperwork. And I remember these huge, I don't know how big 12-inch floppies.
Yeah, I remember the 12-inch floppies.
I was around all of it. And so it was a great experience, and seeing how things evolved. And I always had access to the coolest computers. I mean, I probably had the first touchscreen Hewlett-Packard.
Wow.
Right. And, so all those things. So it was a great experience. And then also work there too when I was a kid. I think it was 13. And I
Wow.
was helping do all the
Nice.
diagnostics and setting up the operating systems. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was kind of my upbringing. That's where I came from. School year, that was Morristown, and then in Annapolis was a blessing because, grew up literally on the water. As my mom had
Nice.
properties, and my grandma had her house, and it was a waterfront home in Chesapeake Bay, and so I was
Wow.
out sailing every day,
Nice.
crabbing every day, water
Wow.
skiing.
You had some
And
fun.
yeah, it was a blast. I was kind of like Flipper, man. That was pretty cool, man. My brothers were
I
out
love
there.
that show. I love that
Oh
show.
yeah, it was just such a you didn't realize. I just thought that was reality,
Right.
right? And we all have our-
Everybody does this.
yeah, we all have our different truths, but I learned. My gosh, I think me and my brother had the first Coast Guard certifications when Annapolis or Chesapeake and Maryland started cracking down. Like, hey, people should probably show that they know how to drive a boat, but we're out with a little 13-foot Boston whaler, 40 horsepower, and I'm like
great.
11 years old.
Yeah.
My brother is
Wow.
just a little bit more than a year younger than me, and we're out tearing up the bay. And
Well, there's not much to hit
it was a
out there,
blast.
but you can still get in trouble.
you can get in trouble. I like 11 years old, and I remember getting impatient. And hats off to my mom. She said that, hey, once I had the ability to lift that outboard engine and hook it, pull it out of the water, so when it was moored during the day or overnight,
Right.
we could go out in the boat. I could be the driver as long as my brother was with
Nice.
me.
Yeah.
And in the term was so she could watch us, was from the duck blind to the point. This is in Orm Beach. And, so she thought it was going to take me a couple of years to pull that engine. Well, crap, right after she said that, I had my brother practicing with me, and I would start pulling on the engine, get the momentum, and then I'd have him hang on my back to get the leverage, and so then he can go flip the switch to hold the motor. So an hour later, after we just practice, because we didn't let it go, we come back to my mom and said, hey, we can do it. And so, she was a person of her word and said, hey, all right, you can go do it. But we were out there saving. Boats are getting taken out in these different storms and gale winds, people hitting crab pots, et cetera, getting tied up in those chains and ropes.
Right.
We would
You
be
were
out
the
literally
rescue crew,
11
huh?
years old. We're showing up and we're pulling people back to the marina, helping
Wow.
them. And that's pretty funny. And I didn't think anything of it. Now I look at it and I'm like, my gosh, our parents let us go out at 11, 9 years old, just
Right.
tearing up the bay.
That's great.
So it's kind of funny, but we learned responsibility and a real good work ethic at a young age. My mom's a workaholic. My dad, I'd argue, almost as much as a workaholic as her. And so
Right.
we played hard and worked hard. And so I think the sooner you learn to appreciate time and money, the better off you are.
Amen.
And so,
Yeah.
and thanks to my parents, at the time, I remember all my friends like, gosh, man, your parents are so hard on you. But
Really?
it
Wow.
probably worked out.
You
pretty
didn't
good.
even know, huh? You just thought it was normal.
For the most part, except I saw some freedoms that my friends had that I didn't. But then again,
Right.
conversely, I think most people would think that would be crazy. An 11-year-old is out there on the Chesapeake Bay just tearing it up, right? And,
Right.
So
So
yeah, that was my upbringing.
somewhere in the back of your mind, you went, not everybody's getting away with this.
Yeah, I just did. I really thought it was natural. I just thought it was natural for everyone. And
Yeah.
then, and then learning sailing, all those things. It was a great experience learning from my grandma, fishing, my uncle. And
Yeah, sailing.
Mostly crabbing. Crabbing was an absolute. It was almost like meditation, right? You're hanging out all these chicken lines and fish heads and ropes, and you're slowly bringing them up and bring them back to grandma to cook. And we'd have a lot of friends come down at a Jersey, Virginia area to meet up on the weekends and have. Just delicious,
Crab boil.
crabs.
Yeah.
Bring in the bushels of crabs and
Wow.
and just enjoy it. And the thing is, there's so much work. I always thought I was hungrier after trying to eat because you have to do so much work to remove the shell, break them up.
Right.
So anyway, but yeah, that was my childhood. That was my upbringing before I moved out to the Reno Tahoe area.
Sounds like a blast.
It was, and I still want that back. I've been craving a waterfront home. It's like a blessing and a curse. It's
Well,
kinda
you
like,
got to get out of Nevada if you want to. Well, I guess you're kind of by a lake, right?
Lake Tahoe.
Lake
is
Tahoe.
a 30-minute drive.
Oh, it's kind of a ways away. Yeah.
Yeah, 30. But a waterfront home in Tahoe, forget it. The billionaires.
That's true.
I shouldn't say that. That's the scarcity mindset. However, the billionaires have replaced the millionaires. Right?
Wow. Yeah, it is very pricey. Even the Nevada side, I would imagine.
Well, especially in Nevada side.
Really? Yeah.
Who wants to pay those ridiculous?
true.
California, and I'm not I always stay away from politics, but but I would say that, Governor Newsom, he got Nevada Realtor of the Year award, Texas Realtor of the Year award, Utah Realtor of the Year award, Idaho
not wrong.
Realtor of the Year award, and Washington Realtor of the Year award last year. And so, a lot of people, especially the thinkers, the producers, the ones that are out there taking risks, it's not a good strategy to substantially increase state income taxes and push that kind of wealth out and create Prop 19. And obviously there's other legislation a part of it, but
right.
Boy, did he drive out some creative, hardworking minds out of that state. And the ones
it's been
that
going on for a long time too.
Yeah, and boy, did it get accelerated. And so, but yeah, I would argue Nevada. Yeah, Tahoe, very expensive, beautiful lake, love it. But boy, was real estate gone to the roof there.
My story about, or what I like to say about California is a great place to visit. I don't want my tax home there, because I did for like 13 or 17 years. I don't know. And
it's a beautiful state, and there's great people in that state.
Just visit.
It's got the most messed up laws. I mean, it's like, my gosh, so many freedoms across that coast, and they pride themselves on creating 300, 400, 500 new laws each year. That is an incredibly crazy, stupid mindset.
Yeah, it is.
And maybe it'll start swinging the other way.
It will. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's nice. It's nice because of the weather and, but it's not worth the price that you have to pay,
There's some real hurdles to overcome. And so I love visiting California, but you'd have to pull pretty hard for me to give up that kind of opportunity cost with it.
When I found out that the capital gains tax at the state level is 7%, that's when I was like shopping for a house in Nevada.
Well, I mean, you're down the Vegas area. I mean, Vegas
I'm 4 hours away on a good day.
And I love visiting Vegas, and it's a beautiful area, especially on the outskirts, right? So I see some friends when I go down there. They're never down at the Strip.
Never.
Very rare.
Right. We're on the northwest side, and we're cuddled up against the mountains.
Sure.
So it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and no taxes at the state level anyway. So
for a while, hopefully forever.
Let's hope forever. So talk a little bit. If it's not, I'm moving again. But anyway, talk about what college was like for you. If you loved it, did you hate it? Where'd you go? Give us some college stories.
Yeah, I mean, college was interesting because I remember, my mom telling me, which is interesting. Maybe I misinterpreted her, but she said college was the best years of her life. Right when I was in college, and oh my gosh, and I don't really mean this, but I was like, gosh, I might as well just kill myself now because I hate college.
Wow.
And and I didn't really mean that. It's just tongue in cheek, right? No, college was, I think my freshman year, I was 17. And I wasn't sure exactly what the degree to go after, but I was like, well, electrical engineering is probably one of the hardest ones. And my dad's an engineer. I love math, science, and troubleshooting, so let's just do that degree. But I really wasn't sure what my purpose was yet. When I was like middle school, high school, I thought it'd be the coolest thing to be a pilot. Well, I started wearing glasses, 7th, 8th grade, so that was kind of out.
Right.
I should have researched that some more. I guess helicopter, I could have pulled it off. And but yeah, I wasn't sure where I fit on things, but I was like, well, I can't think of a more comprehensive background. There's phenomenal degrees at the universities and colleges, but I was like, electrical engineering is probably a good one. And so I was like, I'll go get my Bachelor of Science in Electrical. Went to the University of Nevada here in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, nice.
They have a good program. I would argue, so that's where I went. And so I just did what I had to do. Wasn't that motivated, but I don't like failing either. And so it was a little awkward for me. I mean, you have to become more social. You have to grow up, and you look back in time, and you're like, gosh, man, I behaved that way. I was in college. How embarrassing. I behaved that way. I behaved that way in elementary school. I behaved that way in middle school.
But that means that you're maturing. I mean,
it means that's wisdom, right? And you're growing. I mean, heaven forbid you look back 5 years ago and you're not embarrassed about something. Well, you obviously didn't improve at all.
Right. You should be cringing at your past self.
Yeah, well,
that's a goal of mine. Yes, I guess
you should be cringing, right?
You should.
Yeah,
you should be, because if you're not, that means you're not growing, I think.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And so, but that was my
It's painful.
background.
It's painful thinking about, really?
And
Did
then
I do that?
Well, also, what's good, you're probably way ahead of the curve on it than me, especially since you're in the whole self-improvement piece, right? I mean, that's what your
Right.
show's all about.
Right.
That was a real scary subject for me, self-improvement and getting in my own brain. But yeah, I've learned to forgive myself. That's probably one of the hardest
It's
things.
huge. That's
Years,
huge.
and I would look back, I was like, gosh, but just get over it and forgive yourself. It's like, my gosh, man, that was 20 years ago. Get over it.
Right.
You learn
Right.
from it. You're a human being. What do you expect?
Right. I think that's a big deal of that. Forgiving not is more is for me, and it sounds like for you too. It's more important to learn to forgive yourself and laugh and cringe at your, former self, your younger self, your past self, whatever you want to say, and just say, hey, guess what? You're still human. Nobody's perfect, right? So
Agreed. And
right.
Me, who always wants to do things perfectly, that's a hard reality.
It's part of the engineer thinking, right?
It is. It's a hard reality to get over. But my gosh, if everything's just perfect from the get-go, that's not too enjoyable either. And but yeah, literally out loud, there's times, especially when I'm focused on something and something, this weird kick in your head, and it's like, gosh, why am I thinking about something like that 15 years ago? Why am I still feeling guilty about it?
Right.
You learn from it.
Right.
And I literally out loud, and it sounds crazy, well, out loud, I say, just let it go. Forgive yourself. I mean,
it works though. It works.
Yeah, because you're saying it out loud, and you're hearing it, and then you're internalizing it, and it does help.
I heard like a trick that I have embraced, I would say, was relive the moment, right? Go back there and be that person again in your head, right? And then get to the end, take a deep breath and let it out and go, yeah, that's okay. That actually really works because you're, that, yeah, that's okay.
Let out. It's interesting. I was teaching my son. He just turned 5 years old, and I'm teaching ski up at Squaw Valley a few weeks ago. And every time he fell, which he embraced falling, he's a little machine. He's a daredevil.
Right.
And but he's ready to go right back after it. And I'm like, hey, I want you to just three big breaths, buddy.
Yes,
yeah,
that's perfect.
Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Just 3 times. Get set. All right, let's go get it again. So no, I think that's a great suggestion for everyone listening too. That it's just just that's okay.
It's okay. That's okay. Right. You
I say it to my son.
You live through it.
Okay.
You live through it. You're human. You made a mistake. Learn from it. See, I think when I was a kid, it took me a while because I grew up in the Midwest. I don't know how much different it is to the East Coast, but there's a lot of repression and not talking about emotions or anything serious ever, unless you're drunk and crying and it's a holiday. Okay, so that's Midwestern, right? There's never any TV show moments in your real life. Everybody's just talking about BS and never admitting anything. That was my childhood, right? But when I got into the real world in the Air Force, I realized other people actually talked about what they were feeling. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But I would also think things like, okay, let me just always be happy, right? And when things go wrong, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter, right? But that's like this Pollyanna kind of attitude, right? It's like, no, that doesn't work either. When you lose or you have a setback or a disappointment, you actually have to feel that. So I wasn't doing that. I was just like burying it like a good Midwesterner and just ignoring it and drinking some more. That doesn't actually work. You actually have to feel it, be sad, and then go, okay, that's okay. That's okay. At least you process the information. You process the emotion. Don't just ignore it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I can tell you a mentor of mine a few years ago helping me break through this it's been a process. I would pride myself on being a fast learner on many things, but when it comes to my brain and looking inwards, that can be a challenge. It's scary.
Right.
It was
scary for everybody.
Not as scary anymore, but it was definitely really scary to me years ago. And I, of course, hindsight, I wish I figured this out 20 years ago, but oh well, at least I figured it out.
You figured it out.
But he was telling me, his name was Trent, and he was telling me, so Ken, it's not a failure if you learn from it.
Right.
Right.
It's true.
And so it's not a failure. And I always joke, there's a big difference between ignorance and intelligence. Ignorance, you just didn't know better. Right. Stupidity, I should say, ignorance and stupidity.
Right.
Stupidity is you keep doing the same mistake over and over and over again. Right?
It's wrong, but you just do it over anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Stupid.
Yes.
Right?
Stop it. Try something new.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so you go to college, you become an engineer, right?
Yes. Got my Bachelor of Science.
Right. Okay.
My first degree in a Bachelor of Science, Electrical Engineering, minor in Mechanical. And I graduated. I'm out.
You go get a job.
Yes. Got a job. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was interning. And I didn't mean to cut you off. What about the job piece? You want me to tie into that?
Yeah. Just, you can talk about what was your first job like?
Well, I could tell you I was about a year or so out from graduating, and I was really craving internships, and just wasn't finding anything in the Reno Tahoe area at that time as an intern for electrical engineering. And so, but it was pretty cool. Before I graduated, I was hired. I don't know how much they exist today, but I got hired as an intern in Carson City, Nevada, which is about 30. Now it's about 20-minute drive, but at that time it was about 30, 40 minutes.
Right.
And at Mallory Ignitions. And so I was an intern learning how to design electronic ignition systems. So it was a great experience. And the way I got that job was fun because they weren't hiring any interns. I just came in, met the boss, and said, hey, I'll work for you guys for free. I just want to dedicate 15, 20 hours, whatever you guys want, I'll go do it. And he was from German. He was from Germany. I mean, he's just very strong accent, really to the point. Don't mess around with him. Very black and white.
Yeah.
And, but he was great. He was just the next day he called back and he was just impressed that I was willing to go work for free.
Right.
Do whatever needed to be done because I wanted to learn from some brilliant minds on, and I've always loved supercars and cars and loved all the mindset and engineering behind it and the thinking and the money, the effort, all of it.
Yeah.
And so, they said, hey, we've got an internship for you. And then when I graduated, that turned into a full-time job. Loved it. I mean, I'm going to top fuel drag races.
Wow.
I was never into drag racing.
Right. But who cares?
But
you're playing with like supercars and drag race cars.
It was neat. I mean, in person, pretty fascinating. On TV, in my opinion, very boring. But I'm hanging out with people like John Force, Eddie Hill, some big names.
Yeah.
And I think the daughter is a big name now. I don't follow drag racing anymore, but once I stopped working there, but it was a great experience. Just all of it. And they own Urson Cams, and so there's the mechanical piece there. So it was a great experience. And I was getting paid. I mean, they brought me on as an intern. They actually did pay me.
Oh, nice.
Like, well, we're not going to have you work for free. But they paid me pretty much nothing, but that was okay. I loved it. I was so grateful for it. Works with great people. And guess what? I soldered a lot there in the labs, and that was fun too. And it was a great experience. Then after I graduated, they were going bankrupt.
Uh-oh.
And of course, they didn't admit they were going bankrupt, but I knew they were going bankrupt. And I was like, oh, crap. I better go see some other options. And I had a great opportunity to work as an outside plant design manager with the local telephone company, big name.
Right.
Here, obviously. But at the time, it was a great opportunity. So I was working for SBC, which has now become AT&T.
Right.
And so I think, I could be wrong, but I think I was the youngest outside plant design manager they hired at the time. I was surrounded by, it was a great education. I think I worked there for almost 5 years. And it was Nevada Bell, part of Pacific Bell Telesis, all acquired by SBC, and then SBC gobbled up AT&T. Now it's all AT&T again, right?
Right.
Very interesting.
I like that rebrand story. So,
how it rebranded?
Basically they bought AT&T so they wouldn't be SBC anymore. That was the way I looked at it.
It's so interesting. I mean, AT&T disappeared right off of the Dow, but SBC's the headquarters I believe was somewhere in San Antonio, Texas at the time, and I believe still the headquarters, but anyway, that was after I graduated, went to go work for the telephone company. It was a great experience. And the education you get, you don't get that outside of that, at least at the time. I mean, you don't get that at a university. I mean, you've got some phenomenal. That's all in house. And so anyway, it was a great education. Worked with some great people, but almost after 5 years, there's a lot of meetings though, and I couldn't done with all the meetings. And then I had an opportunity they were looking for some developers I was doing a lot of work for at the telephone company, helping on all the outside plant design work and the conduit layouts and the fiber layouts, et cetera, and plain old telephone lines, pots, right? Pot lines, pots. And so it's like, hey, we were looking for civil engineers, and land development was to the roof, and they couldn't find any civils. And then I asked some of the civil engineers I knew, are you interested in, working for this, this engineering firm? And it's like, no, they didn't want to leave their jobs. And at one point in time, I think it was it's just meeting after meeting after meeting. And it was a great education. But in order to really move up that ladder, I was not willing to move out of the Reno Tahoe area. But if you really want to expedite your career, probably moving to Texas or other would have been a smart choice. And I wasn't willing to do it. And I had a great opportunity. So I just couldn't move up. And I wanted to keep improving and taking on more responsibility and kind of moving up that corporate ladder. And I just felt like I was stuck.
Yeah.
And so
AT&T is basically like the government.
I probably shouldn't even mention AT&T because they scare me. I so admire that company and they scare me at the same time. And,
right.
It's interesting, all that diversification, creating all these spinoffs, and then all came back to be one big machine again, didn't it?
Right.
I mean, you've got AT&T, Verizon, and essentially Sprint / T-Mobile. You've got the three big machines.
Right.
And I guess they need that kind of economy of scale.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean, the corporate sort of like when they went to design the corporate structure, the only model they had was the military. And I was in the military 20 years. So, I actually got out of the military, and my very first job was AT&T Government Services.
so you have some good firsthand knowledge.
I do. Too many meetings.
When I was just meeting after, and not that there's not value to them. It's like, my gosh, man, it's something. Quite often, it just felt like some finger pointing session instead of just how to move forward.
It was always useless. They, especially like the military meetings, Air Force meetings. Oh my God. If somebody asks me to go to a meeting now, I just cringe. I never want to go to another meeting ever again.
It's so funny because now
you just sit there and everybody talks, right? And then everybody says, okay, everybody has their assignments, go do your thing and come back next week while I've been on the meeting. You come back and nobody's done anything.
There's a lot of, yes, I understand. And there's a lot of truth to it. And so that's why I bailed. I couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah, right? Me too. So, I retired. So.
I couldn't handle it. It was funny when I was working there. Wasn't that big into comic strips, but Dilbert, I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff is so hilarious. It's
Scott
like literally
Adams is awesome.
Yeah, Scott Adams. He must be in the room right now. How does he know all this stuff?
Because he lived there.
Yeah, because he was there. He grew up at Pacific Telesis in California, if I remember right. And so
I don't remember where, but he had a lot of corporate jobs. So I read his book, one of his books. I can't remember which one. It was like it was how to fail big and still come up winning or something funny, but yeah, he was like, I think the funniest thing he said in that book was, I was never really good at any job, but I was really good at getting another job.
I think he's a brilliant mind. I think he's funny. And,
he's amazing.
For sure. But yeah, I remember reading those comics like, gosh, man, how does he know all this stuff? But yeah, because he was in there and he had really good friends in that whole area. So he probably had just 100 years worth of content. To write on. So
yeah, he had that sort of like comedian gene too. That writer gene that actually can see the funniness in a mundane situation like Seinfeld. And then not only that, but then, study the pieces and the sort of structure and flow of what makes something funny. Yeah. So not a great artist, just hilarious.
I didn't know he was a hypnotist, and so he has a really strong
So
understanding
persuasion
of
and
psyche.
yeah, totally. Are you following his podcast at all or whatever?
No, it's interesting. I mean, everyone I think thrives on different mediums, and so when I had a client of mine and he's a good friend, he's an electrical engineer who told me about him years ago, and I never knew who Scott Adam was. I think like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And but I started reading a lot of his blogs, and I just thought it was fascinating. One thing, always make fun of the financial industry, even though I'm in it every day. I just love my clients and those relationships. But I never had any interest in human psychology when I was getting my engineering degrees.
Right. Okay.
Right. That was absolutely boring to me. I was like, why do I have to take all this crap? Just but
this has no relevance to me at all. Right.
This industry made me, not at the time, I just didn't get it, but this industry really made me grow as a human being. My personality.
Yeah. You mean finance and insurance? Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, because you're working with people and you have to understand their thinking process. And for the longest time, it was an epiphany for me this was at least 10 years ago, where I always thought that the world was thinking, most humans were thinking backwards from me. And then I realized, no. I'm thinking backwards from everyone else.
Correct. Yes.
And as I dove into things and I learned, I mean, my gosh, how to win friends, and influence people. I think that was written by I think Napoleon Hill or Dale Carnegie. I can't remember, but I read that book. I read that book 3 or 4 times because, at the time I thought people appreciated being corrected in front of everyone else. Like if I said something wrong, I would want to know immediately. But most humans don't like that. Most people don't like being asked why. I asked why all my life because I want to learn.
Right.
But for especially you with the military background, you ask someone why, that's questioning authority, isn't it?
Right. Yes. You can't do that.
I didn't see it that way.
You can't do that. Right.
I didn't know that.
You can do that, learned, but you have to do it in the right context.
That's correct. And so this industry has made me grow so much. I mean, tolerance. I mean, when I got in this industry, end of 2008, and I had, literally, I did not have any tolerance for being talked down to. I wouldn't talk down to anyone else. No one should talk down to me. And but guess what? When you go from and I jumped over this one piece, but I don't want to spend too much of your show on it. But when I left the telephone company, I couldn't get any friends that were civils to do civil engineering work, and so I told this engineering firm that was doing a lot of work for this land developer. It's like, hey, I'm an electrical engineer. I got my minor in mechanical, and I'll work for you guys. I took a huge pay cut. I'll go get my civil engineering degree. I'll go get my professional engineering license.
Wow.
And so you just go do it. I was single at the time, and I wasn't the most social person. I've had social distancing down for well over a decade. Right?
You were country before country was cool.
I've always just naturally, my friends would have to come to my house to get me to go out, at night, Fridays or in the weekend. I just naturally love outdoor stuff during the day, but the social stuff at night never really resonated for me.
Right.
And, I was like, hey, I'll go work for you guys. Took a huge pay cut. My mom thought I was crazy.
Of course.
To leave the telephone company, take that kind of pay cut. And for a brand new, essentially a new engineering firm, but had great connections locally. And I got a phenomenal education, but I was working typically at least 50 hours a week. Went back to Nevada to go get my Bachelor of Science in Civil to expedite getting my professional engineering license. So I had 4 semesters. One of them, I think, was 14 credits, all civil. And what a phenomenal education. And it was interesting because when I first went, it wasn't really on me. My parents subsidized the majority of that to get my electrical engineering degree, which I'm very grateful for.
Right.
But when I went back to get my civil, that was all on me. It's very interesting when it's your own money. And you're very focused on what you want to accomplish. I wanted to get that civil engineering degree as fast as possible so I could get my professional engineering license. And so
you weren't screwing around.
I was not screwing around. And it's amazing how efficient you can be. And I was a machine. I mean, one of my good friends was just a few houses up, and I saw him in Christmas. I remember this one girl, I just went on a date and I said, hey, I'm about to start the semester. You want to do something in December? That's like 3 months later. She thought I was crazy, right? Because I didn't have time for anything else. It was just work and school.
Right.
And that's all I did. So I would work literally every weekend, Monday through Friday. I wasn't at school in classes or doing all the homework through, the hours at night. I was at work. And so it was pretty neat because I got a phenomenal education getting paid for working at the engineering firm, got a phenomenal education in the civil discipline at the university. Man, we had some great teachers. I only got one bad class. There's just some TA, but the other ones, all the professors were there, great education, got the civil degree. And that's a fun process because you have to go to get your PE license. That's I had to do, you have to do the fundamentals exam, which is an 8-hour exam. And then at the time it was called, I think EIT, something like engineering training, but it's an 8-hour exam. You got to pass that. Then you have a 4-year internship under a professional engineer.
Wow.
And then you go out and take another 8-hour exam. You got to pass that one. So it's a real fun process. And you have to have 4 people on the board approve you, say, hey, this guy's worthy of being a professional engineer. And so got that. And then California, that's never good enough. You got to step it up for California.
Then you got to go do it for California too.
That's another 5 hours of exams, two 2.5-hour exams. And to pass that. And what's nice about getting the California PE, the California PE is because it is so stringent, pretty much across the rest of the U.S.
You're good.
You have reciprocity. You can go get in that specific state the PE license pretty quickly.
Nice.
And, but yeah, that's from school to that. And
man, you were an engineer for a long time.
Yeah, I love it.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it. I still love it.
So how did you get into finance and insurance? That's got to be a big pivot.
It was a huge pivot, and it's just, I was ignorant, right? Wasn't stupid. I was ignorant. I didn't know what I was getting in for. Right. But what happened, I think it was back in 06. I can't remember, or 08. No, it was 08. Right. So I got my PE license.
That was the financial crash.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, all land development just stopped.
Right. I remember.
And guess what? The cities, it's kind of a parasite host relationship, right? The cities have the tax revenues, but if you tax too much or there's no revenue, you keep all these public works projects stop too.
Right. Everything just stopped.
It all stopped.
A long time. Yeah.
It all stopped. And so I wasn't willing to move, not to insult Vegas. There's some positions down in Southern Nevada. I was like, I ain't moving down to Vegas. I want to stay up here at the time. I'm not moving to California. You can't pay me enough to move to California. And I love California, but I just didn't like the idea of them taxing everything outside my earned income.
Right.
And I was
at least you didn't do it for 17 years. So
yeah, I didn't want to move back, and I didn't want to move back east just because I had my parents are here, a lot of good friends. I just started a serious relationship who's now my wife.
Nice.
And so this, December of 08, I just, for some reason, I was like, what can I do to survive? And it was the first time in my life that I took a job or took a career for the money. Every other job I took, it was never for the money. It was something that I was very fascinated in. Right. I wanted to learn, and I'm getting paid to learn and improve.
Right.
And
so your heart and your mind is in the right place. You're not just trying to scrounge around and survive.
Yeah, and it's just what a blessing. I mean, we're going to be working and producing for a long time. So if you can find something that resonates for you, not necessarily the best job, like, hey, I love tennis, I love skiing, but I don't have the talent or skill set to be a professional athlete at that level, right? So that was, although that's something I'm passionate about and enjoy, good luck. But it was something I was really skilled at and enjoyed, and I loved it. But here I'm going, it's like, what can I do to survive? Well, I knew some successful insurance agents.
Okay.
And I always wanted to learn about insurance, but most importantly, the finance side, like how is that game played? Because my first advice when I was 22, I was like, my gosh, what a joke. I would argue a lot of them with this traditional planning, it just doesn't work. And so anyway, I always wanted to learn the inside, how that game's played. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I started my own insurance agency, got a contract as a 1099, and got my insurance licenses, quickly got my securities licenses to help on the stock market piece. And boy, was that a learning curve, because all of a sudden I'm thrusted into an industry where I'm a salesman.
Right.
Like I got
you didn't know you were going into that.
I had no idea. I just thought, I had no idea.
There's math involved, right? I know math.
Well, I seriously just thought that's how the game was played and what a fool I was. But, and I remember I'm at my good friend's house for Christmas in December. My my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, were there, and I didn't let anyone know it bothered me. But it's like, hey, how's engineering going? And I'm like, engineering's dead. So I started my own insurance agency.
Right.
And then like the whole room,
They just
like-
look at you like
the cross symbol goes up, and everyone puffed around me. And one of my former bosses for in the civil engineering area, he was coming up, and more and more he drank throughout the night. He's like, hey, guess what Kenny's doing now? He's an insurance agent. Run. So it's just so I didn't know that there was such a negative. You just don't know what you don't know, and
Stigma.
I didn't know there's
Yes.
such a negative
right.
stigma to insurance agents. There's like one step over a car salesman, and both of them are a huge step over our politicians. But
Right.
it was really, I wasn't, for me who didn't like being talked down to, that was really humbling and hard. I didn't understand that insurance agents were so disliked. Now,
Right.
I quickly understood because I had, for me, I had USAA all my life until I got in the
Yeah.
industry.
Nice.
And
Me
you know,
too.
with your military background, I'm sure. And so
Yeah.
I just always thought that wasn't a very salesy relationship. I mean, my parents had USAA, I got USAA, and
Right.
and you're just on the phone. You tell them what you have, and you get what you know.
It's easy.
It's just done. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was such a salesy world.
Right.
But then I get in that industry, and I'm surrounded by insurance agents, and then now quickly financial advisors before the crash, you know, were highly respected. March of 09, sacks of crap. Just same level of, you know, I'm saying that's how they were perceived. Sacks of
Right.
crap, right? No one trusted insurance agents. No one. And why would
Financial
you?
advisors are under the bus now too.
I mean,
right?
yeah, the financial advisor on the bus too. You know, it's interesting. I wrote a blog on it years ago. The S&P 500. You always joke that you have to go through hell to get to heaven, and it hit 666.
Wow.
It started going up.
Holy
Isn't that weird?
cow. Wow.
It hit 666. I think it was March of 09 before it started going up. But I had people here. I just got my securities license. I had people coming in to see me who lost, and this is the worst thing. Most people pull all their money out when their
Right.
stomach can't endure the pain anymore,
Right.
which is the worst time to
The
pull
worst
off.
time. They got to go watch
Which
It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah.
But the best time, you talk to the majority of financial advisors out there, they never think you should pull anything out, right? Because they're
Right.
getting paid with assets under management fees. There's the majority, I always joke, the 99% of advisors make the 1% look bad.
Right.
And
That's true.
but yeah, there is a huge conflict of interest, and you got to be very careful. There could be a bias there. And but yeah, best time to pull your money is when the stock market's or not all of it necessarily, but the best time to take money is when it's at its all-time highs.
Obviously.
The
Yes.
worst time, it is obvious, but guess what most humans do? They keep hanging on,
scared.
hanging on.
Right.
They wait. It's an emotional thing, and boy,
Right.
do I understand emotion.
Oh yeah, my family. I think my dad did the same thing. I think I don't know if it was '08 or some other crash, but at the lowest end, I think he sold everything in his 401k.
It's,
know?
Yes.
And then
it's-
everybody did it. You know, it was just like it's one of those herd mentality kind of things. It's just like, well, obviously you have to sell that. I do. Okay.
it creates momentum, and unfortunately,
Sad.
and boy did COVID and the pandemic, and more importantly, how our government responded to it last year. Fear always outweighs greed.
It's true.
Fear
It's-
always outweighs greed.
It's
and so
what,
you get people pulling a lot of money because they're afraid.
Scott Adams always said the first lesson in persuasion and learning about human behavior is humans are almost never rational. Almost never. You could almost say never. Because when they are, it's like they have to force themselves to be, and it only lasts in short spurts. But an engineer
it's hard.
has to be rational all the time at work, at least anyway.
It's interesting. You talk to an engineer, and I would be the same way, saying, "Well, I don't make emotional decisions, right? They're all logical,
Right.
all deductive reasoning, go
Not
through
really.
this process." And in many ways, when it comes to design stuff, yes. But when it comes to like money, I can tell you. I mean, I was learning to trade back. I think before I got into the industry, I mean, I was always fascinated by the stock market. It still is my bright and shiny object, usually, although that's usually the last place I go to for most clients. I start with a strong foundation, which is changing the flow of money, fixing mindsets, and creating a liquidity, before we start chasing rates of return.
Right.
And all really boring things. But once you have a solid foundation and you have the mindset right and systems right and automation right, that's how you make transformational change for these families. Then when things are dialed in, then you can start chasing rates of return and start gambling, not at the casinos, not gambling down in Vegas, but gambling on the stock market.
Start betting on the continued existence of the World Trade System. That's what I like to say. As long as there's still a World Trade System and your money's there, you're okay.
Yeah, so as long, we need the world to start turning again, and as long as money's flowing, as long as we have a country, as long
and
as
you don't panic,
we're just fine.
Right.
Yeah,
Remember, don't panic.
Well, that's the emotion piece.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that's how I got in this industry. I figuratively, I was on the corner saying I will engineer for food. And I was like, what can I do to survive? And that's how I got into this industry.
Right.
And I've been in it since 2008. I hated it. I was like, you mentioned at the beginning of the show how you want me to talk about the pain part.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, boy, did I hate it. I didn't like cold calling. But it's amazing what you will do to survive.
Right.
And me, who, especially then, I still argue I'm a marketing idiot. I don't understand marketing. But what I did that distinguished me real quickly from my competition, not knowing it distinguished me from my competition, is that I treated everyone that came in my door, whether it became a client or not, like I wanted to be treated. And I'm pretty high maintenance, my wife would argue, and my friends, is like, I want them to be educated. I wanted to teach them everything about the most boring topic in the world, auto and home insurance.
Okay.
And I'd have them come in with their declaration pages. I'd show them how it works, show them more importantly how it didn't work. And 2/3 of the time, I was like, it makes no sense to switch, because I was with a captive insurance agency at that time. I was like, it makes no sense to switch to me right now. Here's why I would advise you to look into, go talk to your current insurance agent, get proposals for this, and stay with that agent.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, you're not what we expected. But I couldn't look at him and say it made sense to switch me. I was like the dumbest thing ever. So you can tell I'm a sales idiot. But one thing I did was, but I was like, but what I did is I would set a time to meet my clients, potential clients. I would show up on time. I say I'm going to call, I would call at that time. I say I was going to do something, I would do it. And I treated everyone like I wanted to be treated. And also too, that's when I switched from USA. I mean, I left USA because how could I sell my clients something I didn't have myself? So I switched my auto insurance, my home insurance, my investments, everything had to be through my agency. I can't ask someone to do something I'm not doing myself.
Right.
And so just by leading by example, my gosh, wouldn't it be great if our politicians would become leaders? Lead by example.
Yeah, right.
You ask us to stay home and do nothing and have no life. You guys need to do the same too.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, just lead by example. And so that's that, and then the work ethic, right? I mean, I didn't want to go knock on doors. But I'm knocking on homes. I'm cold calling. I mean, I remember my first person I called on a cold call. I had this list of 100 people. I'm calling up, and this girl answers, and I said, "Yeah, I understand you just recently moved to Reno, right? Because you get this list of people who moved in." She's like, "How do you know I just moved to Reno? Where are you? Are you outside my house? Like, just get away from me, a-hole." And then
Suddenly
hangs
you're
up.
a stalker. Yes.
So yeah, like that I'm a stalker, and I'm like, oh boy, do I have a lot to learn.
Wow.
Right?
So
And
that's
that was my
not how
first
to
cold call.
start that call.
Yeah, my first call, I took a pause and then, but still went to the next 70 plus, where you're told you're a sack of crap. 1/3 doesn't even answer. Probably no one now answers, 10 years later.
Right. Wow.
But yeah, that was a real wake up call. It's just learning, and boy, do you get talked down a lot. And so I got thick skin on that one, realizes, you just grow with it.
Right.
And not take that stuff personally.
Right.
Although for quite some time I did. And, but then also I just saw how most people in the industry behaved. I'm like, my gosh, man, how could these people be selling insurance and they wouldn't have it themselves? But they're selling it for this carrier.
Right.
It's just asinine. And just price. And where I'm saying, hey, this is how it works. This is how it doesn't work. Here's a way of how you can leverage your money to get really good asset protection. And I remember there's a training there. Gosh, it was one-on-one. I would tell you the carrier, but they're great commercials that they put out. And so anyway, I remember I met all the criteria, their cuts and their quotas. Just being me. I didn't do anything they said to do marketing.
Wow.
And I treated everyone like I want to be treated. And I remember going down to Agora Hills down in California to get training on, and I thought I was going to get training on insurance, like how auto worked, even more than all the self-studying I did, auto insurance, home insurance, et cetera. And no, it's just all sales crap. And like, clients don't care about coverage. Clients don't care about this.
Right.
That's
not important.
Emotion, and persuasion. I'm like, what? So literally within an hour, I'm arguing with the teacher, and there's probably about 30 other newbie agents in there. And I'm like, hey, I found that all my clients want to be educated. And he's like, no, Ken, it's because you're an engineer. You're wrong. No one wants to be educated. And the reality is he's wrong, because at least the ones that gravitate towards me, I've had, since I've been in this industry, one person who's a good friend up in Incline Village, Nevada, great electrical contractor. He's the only person, hey, Ken, I completely trust you. Just write what I need. But everyone else that has come to my door on the most boring topic in the world, auto insurance. And I don't sell auto insurance, home insurance anymore.
Right.
I sold that brokerage off over 2 years ago. But I mean, people like being educated. They like being told the truth. They like to know how to be empowered to make their own choices. And I love lifelong relationships, but that is where it all started for me. And just grinding away and working every day, essentially, didn't take much time off, just building up that brokerage and then learning more and more about the financial space. And then after 2 years, meeting all contractual obligations, like, you know what, I can do a lot more for the community if I go independent, create my own brokerage. I had a 1-year non-compete. Engineering came back on the environmental side.
Right. Okay.
And I had this illusion that I could be a partner, run an environmental engineering firm, and help people out in the financial space. Because I thought at that time, I thought I was done with the financial industry. Boy, I didn't get along with most advisors.
Right.
Didn't get along with most insurance agents. And by the way, the ones that are really successful, hats off to them, the fact that they understand human nature, they understand psychology. They're very hard workers. They didn't get where they got by not working hard, the majority of them. They're after it. And I admire them for their work ethic and their ability and sales type things, incredible skill. Really admire that kind of work ethic and getting after it and not quitting. The ones that succeed, it didn't just fall in their lap in the first few years. They had to really earn it.
Yes.
Yeah, they hustled it.
Yes.
Now, the part that I struggle with, though, is that majority of them don't know anything about money. They really don't.
Right.
I mean, not the way I like to teach it. And I think a lot of it, whether it's intentional or unintentional, they just don't know better.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that's being promoted by the stock market, Wall Street, the banks, it's not. The industry is doing the exact opposite of what they're teaching their clients to do. Yeah. And so what was really profound, and I'm just naturally contrarian, this is how engineering really has helped me succeed in this industry. It's helped my clients succeed. It's like, I have an idea. Why don't we just, instead of doing what the industry is teaching us to do, why don't we do let's do the exact opposite and do what they're doing and apply it to us and apply it to our families. And we can capture all that wealth. And so that's been something that's a big driver for me, is that I'd rather see by far more wealth in more families' hands than just a few institutions.
Right.
So let's do what they're really doing. And so that's how it's become a very successful career in an industry that I hate. And I say I hate it, but I'm so grateful for it too, because boy, did it make me grow up as a human being.
Sure. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Like what the main, like I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, but I had one more comment. Like in my job, the building that I work in, all the bathrooms and all the TV screens are constantly on, what is the financial, is it MSNBC? It's a constant stream of talking about finance and stuff.
It's just pure propaganda, all those my argument, but they're on all the time.
It's just like 24/7 of saying nothing.
Well, yeah, you get it's just really funny.
Like sports commentary, but it's finance commentary.
Well, it's just a bunch of opinions, right? They don't know your situation or anyone other of your situation.
Like, this happened. Okay, so now I'm going to get expert A to say all this bullshit. And
That's-
it's
that's-
all
yes.
meaningless. It means as much as at least sports guys know the game. I guess that's what there's this made up game called finance.
Well, the
and
conflict
they're commenting on it, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great way of how you summarize it, because you have news doesn't report about what's about to happen, right? They have really bad crystal balls. They're just good at reporting it at just what happened,
Right.
And then you'll get these
And what to think about it. But that's a
and
different story.
you get these equally qualified professionals and experts. You get one person on one side, advisor A, that's been in the industry for 20 years and is a brilliant mind saying how the market's going to go up. And you got an equally qualified expert on the other side saying how the market's going to go down.
Right.
And so it's like, so what do you do with that? Right.
Absolutely
and then
nothing.
Emotion is like, now you got stalemate. You don't know where to go. And you turn to the browsers and the search engines to find solutions. And there's just so much chaos and truth, non-truth out there. You don't know where to go. And,
I know where to go. Call Ken.
Thank you. There you go. There you go. That's a good idea. And
Or call me. I'll tell you where to go. Call Ken.
What was the other piece I was going to talk about? That and also too, a lot of these money management hedge funds, these gurus that are coming on, and I just don't know how they get away with it. They fail to disclose their positions.
Right.
And so there's like, oh yeah, man, I am big time short on Tesla. That NA is going to fail. Yet they forget to disclose that they've been shorting them for the last year.
Right.
And it's like, how the heck do they get away with that?
So that means that they're interested in them, financially interested in them going down. That's what a short means.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's what a short means. They're shorting that position, and they're going to have a heyday when the market goes down. And I remember it was about a year ago. This one big hedge fund guy, not going to mention his name because I don't have the attorneys to protect myself from him, but he's out there just saying how oh my gosh, he's scared to death. It's Armageddon. The world for sure is going to stop turning. The stock market's going to go down to zero. And I don't. Well, he failed to disclose that he absolutely put massive short positions in place a couple weeks prior. So he just instills this fear and this fear and this fear. And then it's Armageddon. Boy, was the stock market scary last year. I've never seen it drop like that. And, but then it's like comes out later. So yeah, you just, instilling that fear just made him billions. And so, yeah, you get this just propaganda machine that you have on 24 hours a day. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Right? You don't know where to turn.
Yeah, so. That's crazy. I do. Call Ken. He actually knows math. He's been an engineer, and he's actually learned about people now too. So that's great.
Yeah, I've learned a lot, and it started with fixing this brain. Right? it started with me first, and it started with me. And I boy did I surround. I tease this industry, but I hunted the 1%. And I followed them everywhere. And I had phenomenal mentors. I didn't get here by myself. I have a phenomenal team around me, phenomenal mentors that I learned from, and then just applied it to how my brain works, how my engineering brain works, and then applied those principles to help families and help people take the next step. And I don't honestly want to do anything I'm not doing myself. And I think by leading through example, by applying it started with me, then my family, then my friends, and then clients.
That's perfect. That's the way to do it.
I just love this industry is because of the relationships.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're having fun.
I'm having fun, and I'm good at what I do.
Amen. Right? Hey. So Ken, this has been a blast. You are Ken Greene. You are the engineer of finance. So talk a little bit about how people can best get in touch with you as we wrap it up.
Yeah, I would say the best way to learn more about me is one thing I did to fix this brain was do what was the most scary thing ever, getting behind a microphone several years ago.
Nice.
And I was like, hey, I'm really going to do it big. Let's just create a podcast.
I love it.
And so I'm the host of the Engineer of Finance podcast. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, all those areas, right? The Engineer of Finance podcast, great way to learn more about me and what I teach and how I think. And you've arrived because they'll say the Engineer of Finance podcast, and you'll see this big green dinosaur, right? Joey the T-Rex. And so it's random. There's a whole story on that one.
I love it.
And so that's a good way to learn more about me. And then also you can always go to my website, engineeroffinance.com. And, I've written a few blogs here and there, kind of get a little bit more of an idea of how I think. And then, I'm willing to help anyone and everyone. And so I always have a quick talk with Ken where anyone wants to have a 15-minute discussion of where I can see I can help them point in the right direction. I love doing that.
That's
I
perfect.
absolutely love helping people, and that's it.
Awesome, Ken. This has been a blast. Maybe we should do it again. I would have fun. We'll talk more about computer geek stuff and how we hate meetings. All right.
That sounds great, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me on the show. This has been a blast. It was great getting to meet you, and I hope the listeners get the value out of having me as a guest on your show.
I think they will. Thank you. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.